We all know that mental health challenges are rising, particularly here in the US. We also know that conversations and education are becoming much more prevalent, in major part due to shows like Mental Health Mondays on LifeDezign podcast. However, some of the findings in recent studies, they just might shock you. I reviewed 4 separate mental health studies done between 2018 and 2023 and found the results of all 4 studies support what we've been sharing on Mental Health Mondays series. So join us on today's episode and learn more about how mental health challenges and treatments will continue to affect your life over the coming years. And also to join in the conversation so that you can learn to protect yourself and your loved ones from the potential hazards associated to the mental health crisis. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe now so you can join us on every episode. We truly appreciate it. And be sure to engage in the comments section of your favorite platform for your chance to be invited as a guest on one of our episodes. Hey there, listeners. Welcome back to LifeDezign, your number one place to discuss and improve all aspects of your life with a growth mindset. Today, we're diving into mental health discussions with the help and the support of 4 separate studies that have been conducted over the last few years. One of those studies, it included an American Psychiatric Association survey. And that survey found that as of late 2022, nearly 2 out of 5 Americans rated their, and let me say American adults, rated their mental health as fair or poor. And not surprisingly, this was it was an increase from the previous year, or actually from many previous years. In addition to that, more than 1 out of 4 participants, they anticipated that their stress levels at the beginning of 2023 would continue to increase, throughout the year. And I'm curious, as a listener, if that was the case for you. There was another study that we looked at, and that was actually it was a Mental Health America's report, and it shared that the state of mental health in America, specifically in 2023, and the report provided some insights into the prevalence of mental health concerns, and specifically issues related to access to insurance and access to treatment. And this isn't to say that insurance isn't covering mental health issues or challenges, or that treatment isn't readily available for most people, because the fact is it is. But it's still not as prevalent as other types of medical coverage, even though it needs to be. Another thing that this particular report pointed out was that, and this is, we all understand this, but it highlighted the fact that the COVID pandemic actually had a significant impact on mental health data collection. Okay, so a lot of different agencies are actually starting to collect more data, or more specific types of data, of course, suggesting that the pandemic actually played a substantial influence on mental health trends. Okay, not just what we already know that it caused issues, but mental health trends from the research and from the medical perspective of things. And I know a lot of that sounds a little heavy. It sounds more like bad news. But guess what? Even though mental health challenges and concerns have risen drastically over the last few years, okay, there is some good news on the horizon, and I'm actually excited to share that with you. So that's why we're having this discussion today. So let me ask you this question. did you know, or did you understand that the way most people view mental health is actually changing for the better? We hear a lot more about it, and the challenges are increasing, but the but reports and studies have shown that the way the general public looks at mental health, the stigmas and things like that associated to it, it's actually improving. Okay, interestingly, in 2023, a significant portion of American adults, again, these studies were done in America, um, but they had actually planned New Year's resolutions. Now, this was in beginning of 2023, in ways that were related to mental health activities, things like exercise, meditation, going ahead and looking into or receiving therapy. A lot of people chose to do digital detox. That's been hugely popular over the last couple of years as well, even though the amount that we used it increased when everyone was stuck at home and had to, find more things to do that were indoors. However, a lot of people did start recognizing that those activities, the exercise, meditation, actually going to therapy and then doing the digital detoxes, these became popular choices because they recognized these things are actually going to help with their mental health, with their mental wellness and well-being. And they found that these resolutions, similar types of resolutions, are actually being reported again in 2024, and indicating that there is a growing awareness and an actual proactive approach towards mental health among the general public. And again, a lot of that's in large part due to shows and podcasts and different individuals like myself and Mike, co-hosts that participate and people that help me research information, because we're actively out trying to promote it. And so are a lot of you. And so for those of you that are and that participate in this series with us, thank you. Thank you for being a part of that. Okay. In addition, there was a second survey that was completed that I did some research on that I want to share with you. And that was actually, it was a survey done by the Harris Poll on behalf of the American Psychological Association. And this particular poll showed, honestly, some pretty eye-opening results. It actually showed that, and it's a whopping 87%, um, but that a lot of American adults now believe that having a mental health disorder or a mental health challenge isn't anything to be ashamed of. Okay, they were pretty aggressive in that response as well. In addition, 86% um, believe they were confident that people struggling with mental health issues can actually get better. Now, that said, these two findings actually lead to a couple of really important questions. Number one is whether or not that belief, that people who suffer with mental health issues can get better, is 86% believe that. Is that a realistic expectation? Let me be clear on how I'm saying this. 86% of people believe most of those who suffer can get better. They're not saying 86% of people can get better, but the average person does believe that those who suffer with mental health can get better, can improve. So, is that realistic, or is that a dangerous misunderstanding of what it actually takes to recover from a mental health disorder? And I'm curious, if you're watching, what your thoughts are on that. I believe it's somewhere in the middle of that based on my research. Okay. Question number 2. If 87% of adults believe mental health issues aren't anything to be ashamed of, what are they referring to within their definition of a mental health issue or a mental health disorder? Okay. That is something that needs to continue to be um, brought out in discussion, and a lot of clarity needs to be created around that. Because here's the thing: when we look at this being good news, at the same time, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? Despite these positive viewpoints that people are beginning to bring on, there are still a lot of old stigmas that are lingering. They found also that about 1/3 of the folks that were surveyed admitted that people with mental health disorders kind of scare them. you know, they don't know how to engage with these people, or they're not quite sure of what could occur in just day-to-day life. And about 39% of them, they actually they admitted they would see someone differently if they knew that individual was dealing with a mental health issue, specifically, um, a reportable mental health issue, or a diagnosed. That should be the way I put that. A diagnosed mental health issue. And again, do you as a listener believe that these are fair assessments? Do you believe that, is that the way you see it? Here's a fascinating twist to that same survey, as it had found that familiarity breeds comfort. So what did they mean, or what did they really find in that regard? Well, they found that people who've never had a mental health diagnosis, that's why I pulled that word in earlier, because it's not just a mental health issue, it's an actual diagnosis. Um, if they've never had one, or they didn't know someone who had a mental health diagnosis, those individuals were more likely to find the people struggling with disorders more frightening. They felt less comfortable with how would they interact with these people, and what areas would they and would they not trust them in. Okay. However, those individuals who had experienced it themselves, or knew someone that had mental health challenges, they were much less likely to feel that way, because they understood it a little bit more. And even if they didn't have a real clear understanding, they hadn't had a negative experience with those individuals or themselves, and therefore they didn't have that fear. And most people that we're talking to, okay, almost, or that participated, almost 60% acknowledged knowing someone with a mental health disorder. Okay. And this personal connection is actually helping break down barriers, and eliminate or reduce some of the stigmas surrounding mental health and mental health challenges. Again, we need to consider the study participants. Okay. We need to consider their understanding of what a mental health issue or what a mental health disorder actually is, what represents a mental health challenge, disorder, or diagnosis. Okay. But let's talk about something that's just a little bit more intimate, that was brought about within some of these studies and surveys. This particular survey showed that people are generally comfortable being friends or coworkers or acquaintances with someone that had a mental health disorder. However, when it comes to dating someone or letting that individual care for a child, okay, those numbers dropped. People are much less comfortable being in an intimate type relationship or with the thought of a person with mental health challenges caring for children. Okay. And I'll ask again, are these fair assessments or fair perspectives in your opinion? Again, right now we all have the rights to our own opinion on these things. But this is the conversation that needs to be had so we can build education, so we can build a better understanding of what concerns there should be, when and how they should be addressed, and in what way, in what fashion. So here's something specific that I found based on, doing the research, additional research that I had done, plus specifically these four particular studies or surveys, reports, and such. And that is that, well, the reason I want to share this is I really want to get you thinking about this. And that is that a significant number of people, they don't view common issues like anxiety um, and depression. Okay, we'll just use those two because they're the most common. They don't view those as mental health illnesses or issues or you know true challenges, and yet to some degree they are. Now, granted, we all deal with anxiety at some level. I mean, there are arguments that say virtually 100% of people deal with anxiety at some level. And there's a degree of that which is actually good for us. Okay. Kind of, for lack of a better term, it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us aware of certain things. But we're talking maybe a little bit more than that, to a point where we need to, find pause and actually address this anxiousness. Okay. In addition, the majority of people, arguably, actually suffer with some level of depression at certain points in their lives that goes beyond regular grief or the more beneficial side of that, so to speak. Okay. But again, they are to some degree a form of a mental health illness, or they can be. Let's put it that way. At minimum, we can say they can be a mental health illness. Then there's the topic of suicide. Okay, the majority of people agree that suicide or suicidal individuals, they can be treated. Okay, they can lead successful lives, and that suicide itself, that it can often be prevented. Yet, I believe it was right around 1/3, okay, would still keep quiet. They would still keep it to themselves if a loved one died by suicide or even attempted suicide. And a lot of them, a big portion of people, view suicide as a selfish act. I used to be one of those. I used to kind of look at it that way, that it's very selfish. But when we look at it from the mental health perspective, it's not. It's not, because it's predicated by a mental health disorder. In virtually every case, I know there's some differing opinions on that. I get it, if you're one of them. But for the most part, it's suicides, whether they're traumatic things that occurred recent or whether they're long ongoing challenges. Most every suicide case, it's not a selfish thing. It's a mental, it's caused from a mental health disorder. Okay. And there's another very controversial conversation that falls into this territory. Okay. And it has, and it in the past, and it continues to shape both mental health conversation as well as our social or societal conversations regarding many things, including people's rights. Okay. And it's often highlighted in, unfortunately, in dividing political lines. Okay? It's that poor portion of it is unfortunately something that's done intentionally by a lot of people, by a lot of entities out there. Of course, I'm referring to mentally ill people committing murders, and specifically mass murders, such as all of the shootings that have been, publicized and politicized over the last decade or so. Everyone wants to point at guns because they're a quick fix. The truth is that it's the mental health aspect that makes all the difference. Okay, think about it. If we take away a delusional man's, convenience store hammer, he's just going to start using a sledgehammer or something even bigger, even more drastic. We focus on the tool that these mentally ill individuals are using. It's a waste of time and energy. It's a distraction from the root of the issue. Okay, the tool is a formality. His mental, and I say him because I say a delusional man and a mentally ill man, we take away, his common access tool. He's going to find something else to use, another tool. But it's his mental health that matters. Okay, I'm not trying to get into the argument. I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. I'm also a strong proponent of rules, laws that require um, accountability. That's the word that I want to use. I want to be very specific. Accountability in access to these things, training, um, you know, on safety, on many different things. Very specific, identity, but not restriction over and above that. If people meet those expectations, they have that access to those things. Um, Again, I'm not trying to get political, but as supported, as protected by the Constitution, which I believe should be upheld, not torn apart. That being said, I want to bring a strong focus on the mental health aspect of these horrible situations. And I know a lot of people are going to get upset with me. They're going to want to throw hate at me for even bringing this into the conversation, for sharing the truth. And that's okay. I have every right to share this truth more than many because I've had personal experiences with this topic more than once. I've had friends who were killed, who lived through it, but were were victims of violence with a gun. I've been shot at, luckily not hit. Apparently, I was able to move quick, and the shooter was a poor shot. I've had guns pulled on me. My first one, I was 7 years old. If you've heard some of our previous podcasts, one of them with our co-host Maxine, we discussed that in one of our episodes. At 7 years old, I had a gun put in my face and my life threatened. That was my first experience with it, and I've had multiple experiences of various types between then and now. All that said, I'm going to digress. My point in sharing a lot of that is because it's such a prevalent conversation, and there's so much passion in it, and there are so many people that simply ignore. They leave out the mental health part of that conversation, and it is truly the root. It is what needs to be fixed more so than anything. It's just a harder fix. It requires more time and more energy, more effort, more focus. And so it's easy to brush that aside, and it shouldn't be. So, all that said, that leads us to, what about young adults? Right? You may be thinking that. That's brought into that last conversation a lot, because a lot of those incidents are with young adults. Since we see so many young adults losing to mental health issues, we see it very clearly on every single news cycle. Okay? We need to talk about this more. Okay? In the reports that I'm referring to, the 4 studies that I reviewed specifically for this podcast, it was found that young adults are reporting the poorest mental health of all the different age groups. Okay? Self-reported. But also the most shame around these issues. That I find very interesting. That many people in the industry find very interesting. Not only are they saying they've got the poorest levels of mental health, but they're also reporting the most shame about it. Okay, this is a call to action for all of us to keep pushing for awareness and education and understanding on these matters. Okay, there was another report that was put in. It was a Harris poll, okay, done in cooperation with CVS Health. This particular survey revealed that about or almost 60% of all young adults ages 18 to 32 were concerned about their mental health. 60% of young adults were concerned about their own mental health. Okay? And 2/3 acknowledged that there was widespread mental health struggles within their own community. Okay, circle of friends, work and community itself, their neighborhoods and such. We also find that most physicians are also reporting declining mental health, among their patients within their practices. However, only a small fraction of Americans regularly consult with mental health professionals. Something else this survey found. There was so much information in these surveys, and most of us never get access to them. So let me share. I want to share these things. I want to help educate people on these. And the survey also found that the generational differences in people's attitude towards mental health. Okay, with older Americans, they're emphasizing the seriousness of mental health issues more than the younger generation. Not just mentioning that it exists, but they're emphasizing how serious it actually is. Where the younger generation, they're concerned, but they don't necessarily look at how truly serious these things can be. Okay. Another call to action for all of us to keep pushing the awareness and the education and the understanding of these very common challenges. So when we look at all of this, when we hear all of this, and I know I just rattled off a ton of information, but when we look at it all as a whole, what's the takeaway? Again, these are four very specific, studies and surveys and reports that I shared with you, on top of dozens of others that I've compared over the last few months. All of these things have such a strong um, commonality to them. When we look at them, what are the takeaways? What are the takeaways just from today that we shared just from today? Well, the recent findings actually suggest that even though awareness and concerns about mental health are actually rising, there is still a huge gap in education for the general public. The experience or people admitting to recognizing that there are mental health challenges, that's increasing. I don't want to say exponentially, but in drastic number. But the number of people that are actually seeking help is not growing at the same pace. It's falling behind. When we consider that, when we think about that, learning to recognize mental health issues is a major, major key. And we need to keep working to get the average, person educated. You know, but we also need to get them actively seeking professional support, when it's needed. There's the conundrum, right? Do they know when it's needed? Not They don't if they're not educated. So we need to get them educated. Then once they are educated, part of that education needs to be the understanding and the knowledge base and the willingness to seek mental health help, with an expert specifically, um, or even in an ascending, progression, moving in that direction. Once they acknowledge that it exists, and again, that's whether they're dealing with it personally, but also you can get help when you're a third party, when you know someone, when you're someone that you're intimately involved with. And by intimately, I mean a coworker, a friend, a family member, of course, a spouse, a child, a parent, things like that, a sibling. Okay. And we need to help them do that even when they think it's not needed. Okay. Even if they are not educated to a level where they truly understand, yeah, this is at a level where it I need to go figure something out. I need to go get some help at it. If there's even Once they acknowledge it exists, they should be searching out. We all should be searching out some type of help, some more understanding of what we're dealing with. And the current focus, it really does need to be about education, about more conversation, and most importantly, about empathy and compassion for these people. Now, that doesn't mean we go overboard on the empathy and compassion side and enable people to further or to continue down that path that is verifiably a mental health concern, or arguably a mental health concern. But it does mean we have empathy and compassion for the fact that they may not recognize that. And they may fight against us, and other people may fight against us in trying to bring that information to light. But it's important. It's something that we all need to participate in. So please, if you are struggling in any way, or if you know someone who is struggling, um, and you're willing, I would ask you, please be willing. please be willing to step up and to ask for help. Reach out to us. Reach out to me. Reach out to Maxine. Reach out to any other host that you may see over time. I don't know when you're seeing this episode, but reach out to us on any of our platforms, and we will assist you in whatever ways we can. Again, you guys know this. This is not medical advice. This is not some sort of specific medically backed show. This is a podcast. This is a conversation, but it's a conversation that's based on quite a bit of research and a group of people with empathy and compassion and a desire to speak up and to help. If you're a professional in the mental health field and you would like to share in this conversation, please reach out to us again on any of our platforms, and let's see how we can work together to help make a difference. Maybe you become a guest or become a guest host. Who knows? Maybe we can collaborate if you have a platform of your own. Regardless, please reach out to us. I want to thank you for tuning in to LifeDezign, specifically to our Mental Health Mondays series. I'm hoping that you remember mental health is a journey. It's not a destination. And that means the process of working on it, of trying to help. You don't just fix one issue or one concern that pops up and the rest go away. This is an ongoing journey. We're always going to have challenges that come about in our lives. That is the world we live in. We make it a better world to live in by learning about these things, by participating in the conversation with compassion, with empathy, with curiosity. So we're all in this together. Let's work together to find ways to help it, to fix it. Until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of your mind. Take care of your heart, and specifically, take care of each other. Let's do our best to take care of each other. Engage with us, and let's keep this conversation going. I look forward to speaking with you and hopefully meeting a lot of you soon. Until then, as I always say, live awesome and enjoy your journey.